Alex Hormozi is probably one of the biggest YouTubers in the business space. And this year he gained over 800,000 subscribers and over 32 million views on YouTube alone. So today we're going to see what he has to say about growing on YouTube and how we can apply it to grow our own channels.
The difference between these two thumbnails is going from vague to clear. So if I looked at all the stuff that we did in the past, if I said, what is the video on the left about? You'd probably be like, a rule of some sort that might have to do with money. Not sure. If I said, what's the video on the right, the yellow background video? If I were to describe it, I'd probably say a map or a blueprint or schematics of some sort that go from 0 to a million. Well, guess what? The one on the right, it's exactly that. The one on the left actually has nothing to do with what that thumbnail looks like. And what do you know? When people click on something that they don't know what it's about, they have a smaller percentage of getting something they actually want than if you say, this is what this is about, and then they get exactly what they think it's about. So we're going from vague to clear in both what it looks like, the thumbnails, and what we say about it, the headlines.
So if your thumbnail and title is unclear and they don't pair at all, this will cause a lot of confusion for your viewers. You gotta remember that you're essentially competing against thousands of other creators on the platform, and your video not only needs to stand out, but also deliver on what the expectations the viewer will have. But oftentimes I see a lot of people who are starting their YouTube journey leave the thumbnail and title creation process as the last step, which causes this mismatch and unmet expectations for the viewer. So when you're creating your next YouTube video, I want you to design the thumbnail and title first before you get into anything else. That way you have a good image of what your viewers are looking at and what their expectations actually look like.
Like why they should stick around if you're going to be educating something, because I noticed you do this on almost every video on YouTube.
Yeah. So if you're doing longer form stuff, so I'm like you said, spreadsheet thing. I just look at the data and then I see, okay, what stuff worked? Let me do more of that. What stuff didn't work? Let me do less of that. And so when I looked at the top 100 or whatever YouTube videos I had, the ones that were the top 10 all had proof promise plan, all embedded into them. And so that has been our little mental easy framework. Like, what's the promise? What's the proof that you can deliver on that promise? And then, okay, now I'll listen to your plan. And that's at least how I think about it. I think of proof is an approximation of the likelihood that they're going to get what they click to see. It's all about the first moments. And so some of you do have amazing videos that you spent a really long time on, but it took you 45 seconds to get to the point of the video and you lost everybody.
So funny enough, people oftentimes overcomplicate the hook when writing their YouTube scripts. There's this really big misconception that you have to set up this scenario, create a build up to a problem, and introduce the possible outcome that can be expected by the end of the video. But like Hormozi said, you'd end up spending around 45 seconds or even close to 90 seconds to even get to the main point of the video. To be honest, I still make this mistake myself, so that's why the hook for this video is really short. But when you're scripting videos, especially if you are a very small YouTuber, no one knows who you are and you cannot waste your viewers' time. All you have to do for the hook is confirm what the thumbnail and title is about, show proof to your viewers about your own experience, and then just jump straight into the main point. There's literally no time wasted. And that's why earlier I suggested you should start designing your thumbnail and title packaging first so you can create a hook that confirms exactly what the viewer is expecting. Because if it wasn't obvious enough, the thumbnail and title is the first thing your viewer will see.
Sometimes production distracts from the objective of education. If the point for entertainment is to get someone to watch, then adding lots of things can be a good thing. But if you're trying to learn physics and there's whiz bangs and pop-ups and changing backgrounds, it's really hard to learn. And if that's the throughput, or that's the point of the video, then it actually detracts rather than adds. And so the difference that I put in this example here is we have a background that changes colors while I'm teaching something. It does not help someone understand the subject matter better, fundamentally. Changing background color will not help anyone learn more. On the flip side, clarifying what words on a screen are, because maybe my handwriting's not that good, would help people understand.
There's this huge misunderstanding that every video you upload needs to have some sort of insane level of editing quality. In some cases, like entertainment videos, you do need a lot of graphics, edited sequences, and sound effects to keep the viewers hooked. This does not always apply to every other niche, especially if you are working in the education niche. Tech review channels don't need insane fast-paced edits and stuff flying around the screen because their viewers want clear information on the reviewed product. While in an educational niche, like let's say the fitness niche or trying to grow muscle and build a really nice body, your edits only need to help clarify the information you're talking about. So when creating your videos, you need to implement the correct type of edits.
I want you to look at last year and I want you to look at your #1 piece of content. And this is what I want you to do. Just post it again and then let me know how it does. And I will bet you that it does just as well or better than the stuff that you're posting right now. And let me tell you one reason why I believe that to be true. Because if you have been posting consistently, guess what's also happened? More people have entered your audience. And guess what they haven't seen? That amazing piece of content that everyone from last year said was the #1 best thing you ever made. And you know what you said? New people, you don't get that. That was only for my old folks. My OGs, they only get that. No, you gotta reintroduce some of the stuff, your greatest hits. You gotta bring that stuff in so that the new people also know what your greatest hits are.
Now, posting content again might seem quite taboo, especially on YouTube, because you're just re-uploading content that or information you've talked about before. But this is a strategy that a lot of veteran YouTubers already do. For example, every year Vince Oprah uploads an updated version of his Premiere Pro or Photoshop tutorial with the exact same setup. Ty Myers creates the same video at every quarterly milestone on his YouTube journey. You want to keep uploading the same video that made you popular in the first place to get those new reviewers familiar with your older content. And plus, those older breakout hits that you made tends to work out again because that's what your OG viewers or newer viewers have associated you with.
About value per second, not seconds of value. It's about how can I distill this in as few words as humanly possible. And if you've never done this before, take your words, put them into Hemingway or any writing app that gives you a grade level. Keep beating it up until you get it to 3rd grade. And then look at what the language looks like. If you start speaking in that way, people will understand you better. So what happens is if you make it simpler for people to understand, more people will, and the people at the top will simply enjoy it more because it requires less mental effort for them to consume it. If you're a teacher who says they can help me to invest, you might have information that's better than Warren Buffett's. But I constantly have to appraise what you're saying in real time to decide whether I do think it's better or not. If the richest man in the world gives you investing advice, you actually don't have to turn that part of your brain off. You're like, I'm just going to listen and take it as fact.
Now, most people blame bad retention on things like bad editing or not having some crazy storytelling arc. But for educational content creators, that's almost never the real problem. Like Hormozi said, retention is about value per second, not fancy cuts or transitions or a really cool character archetype that you're trying to build up in the video. What usually kills retention is how complicated your language is. If viewers have to decode what you're saying, their brains check out instantly. Think back to high school. The moment a teacher of yours started explaining in some overly technical terms, everyone, and probably even yourself, mentally just left the room and you're just knocked out and not focusing in class at all. So using this analogy, it was never about the topic itself, it was all about how the information was delivered. So if you see your retention graph drop off really early on, or you see very weird spikes in the retention graph, try simplifying your language. You want to try using fewer words, make the ideas easier to follow, and focus on clarity over than sounding like a smartass. When your message is simple, people stay longer because it requires almost no mental effort to listen and decipher what you're trying to say. And the smarter viewers won't mind it either, since it's just information that's easier to digest.
The content is the targeting. The algorithm is so good now. It knows what you're talking about. It knows it can literally judge your background. It judges what you're wearing. It judges who you are, and will display it to the people that they know have a history of watching content that is similar to that people find valuable. And so if you're making stuff about how to fix pianos because you're a piano repair guy, then you will find people who are trying to fix their pianos. But if you're making that type of content, you might be, man, I'm only getting 1,000 views a video. It's like, yeah, but the market of people who are buying pianos might be significantly smaller than the market of people who just want to be entertained or distracted. So it's not fair to compare your views against Mr. Beast. It doesn't make any sense. If I were to think to myself, I have a room of 1,000 people that are gonna watch this and all of them are only interested in fixing pianos, that's a hell of an opportunity.
I think one of the biggest mindset traps a lot of small creators tend to fall into is comparing their views to creators that are completely operating in different niches. And like Hormozi said, the algorithm already knows exactly who your content is for. In other words, your content already does the targeting for you. Using Hormozi's example again, if you're making videos about fixing pianos, YouTube will naturally send that video to people who've watched piano repair content before. It's not going to magically turn you into Mr. Beast, and that's not a bad thing. And getting 1,000 views in a tiny niche can be a massive opportunity for you. Those are 1,000 people that are deeply interested in the topic, not random people scrolling to be entertained. And I experienced this myself when hundreds of high schoolers came from my hyper-specific channel to personally look for my help when applying to my university program. So instead of just beating yourself up over low view numbers and just really slow subscriber growth, I want you to focus on whether you're attracting the right types of viewers for your channel. Every niche has a different ceiling, and understanding that makes your growth feel a lot more meaningful and a lot less discouraging.
So what does this mean? Let's unpack this for a second. If you make content and you judge it by views, I think that's dumb, and I'll explain why. If I have grandma in public come and just do a running slap and just slaps me across the face, that video will probably get views. But does it get the grandma views? No. Does it get me any more people who now believe more in my stuff? No. But what it will do is it will show it to people who are interested in humor, which is a lot of people. But those might not be your customers, and they probably aren't. So, assuming you're not an entertainer and you are somebody who's a business person, if you sell services to anyone, you're likely going to be an educator, not an entertainer. Meaning you're trying to provide value to people to change their behavior in some way, and ideally changing the behavior that gets them to walk closer to you and buy stuff. Okay?
Yeah, so what Hormozi just talked about is pretty much a follow-up to what I said earlier, that views don't really mean anything at all, especially if you are a business owner trying to grow your own platform. You should pretty much be asking yourself this question: are you a content creator or a business owner? Would you rather become an influencer and create content to get views so you can show your family and friends that you're really popular online, or are you on YouTube to make more money? If you're an entrepreneur, a founder, or a business owner, I think the answer is quite obvious here. It's to make a lot of money, because money makes me happy. But no, seriously, if you're a business owner or a coach trying to grow a YouTube channel, you want to upload content that focuses purely on what your viewers value. You might not get this from the first set of videos. It might take you a few months, maybe years to get this right. But as you upload more content, it'll become a lot more clear to you what types of videos get well or get a lot of good traction with your viewers.
And he came in and he was talking to me. And he was like, yeah, offhandedly. It's like, yeah, I stopped listening to your stuff a few months ago and I've been listening to it for like 5 years. He's like, I guess I'm just not really your avatar. And I just like,
Yeah.
it's like, dude, you 100% are my avatar. And that's when I went down to the team and I was like, we need to change it all. Like, we have to just talk about business. So once we went back to business, my average views for video dropped in half. But as a result, we didn't have to have nearly as heavily produced stuff. And so it's very much just like me talking to the camera, me with a whiteboard, whatever. And we got more opt-ins on the site, more book sales, which are the two kind of like leading indicators for me downstream for portfolios. That's all I like talking about. So me talking about other stuff is actually not fun. I have to get amped to do a Mosey Meals thing. And I'm like, who cares? It's lunch. They're like, they want to know. And I'm like, I don't think they do, man.
So when creating content on YouTube, it's not a bad thing to be testing different video ideas, but you want to make sure your core messaging and value you provide does not stray away from what made you credible in the beginning. If you're talking about business growth and start uploading content that's more focused on, let's say, cooking habits, college life, and maybe even talk a little bit more about relationships, then your core audience is going to lose that interest in you. Sure, you may gain a lot more subscriber growth and viewer growth, but like I said before, none of these metrics really translate over into anything measurable. And this applies to everyone who's building something of their own. And that is pretty much Alex Hormozi's advice on YouTube. So you want to take his advice and grow a YouTube channel that serves the goal you're trying to achieve. But learning how to edit any video is quite time consuming, and I know this myself because I used to edit a lot of YouTube videos. So if you want to learn how to edit really simple YouTube videos and get a head start on your YouTube journey, you should definitely check out this video that is popping on your screen at the moment. But other than that, you should definitely take everything that Alex Hormozi has said in this video and go kill it on YouTube.